Okay, you guys, we are live. We're going to give it a few minutes to allow some people to hop on. And for those of you who are tuning in, this is the panel for consent. We'll get into what that's going to mean in just a bit. But before we do that, how is everybody's day going?
Awesome.
Good?
Everything's going. Everything's going in 2020.
Yeah. As
In a
good as it can get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going yeah. And hopefully everyone's enjoying different panels. We've had some great classes today. I'm very, very excited about that. They've all been running really smoothly, which, as we all know, technology is not in our control sometimes. So,
Yeah.
but so far, so good. And yeah, so I guess we'll get right to it. So the way this is going to go, guys, is I'm going to be helping kind of steer the direction of the conversation.
Perfect.
And one of the most important things I can say is that anyone coming into this conversation, I hope that you can have an open mind and open heart and just kind of hear and learn from one another. And things are crazy, you know, and as a Jewish community, I think it's so important for us to make sure that we're working together to be strong and maybe prevent uncomfortable situations. And one of the things I have found is that talking about these uncomfortable situations and making these conversations more common is hopefully one of the best ways to do that, so that people are not feeling uncomfortable about being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So with this conversation today, we're going to be discussing consent, obviously, and think of the dance community, even if it's not considered a sensual dance, we're holding hands, we're being vulnerable to an extent with one another. Maybe it's more vulnerable than we would be in a different scenario. So sometimes there are, different feelings and different doors that open up and stuff like that. But, there still needs to be boundaries and clear communication, and that's going to be kind of what we're discussing today. So I have three amazing people with me today, and I don't think we could have picked a better panel. I have Julissa Cruz. I have Muñeca. Most of you guys will know her as MV with Mom. And then I have Lorenzo, DJ Renzo. So we're going to do it one by one. And each person is going to discuss a slightly different aspect of the topic of consent. And if you have questions or if you have comments, type them in, because what's going to happen is at the end, we're going to take those questions and comments, and we're going to kind of open up the panel and have more of a two-way discussion. And again, this is just in promotion of learning from one another and making sure that we're doing everything we can to grow and getting feedback from everybody. So without further ado, Jill says hello. Without further ado, I am going to pass the conversation over to Julissa.
Wait, me?
I mean,
I thought Muñeca was going first.
Womp.
Oh wait, I am going
right.
Hi, Darryl. Are you comfortable going now?
Oh, I sure. What would you like me to talk about? I just thought we were doing the slide first, but that's fine.
No worries at all.
I can start if you'd like, Julissa. Or you good?
You are the only boy. You
boy. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll go. Thank you, first and foremost, to the Bailacura panel for having myself and these lovely young ladies here to discuss a very, very important topic that, as of late, has come up quite a bit in a lot of the festival circuit. So for many years, I guess, I don't know if we've swept this stuff under the rug or just maybe ignored it or thought they were isolated incidents. But I think now with the preponderance of evidence, we're starting to find out that this is maybe a little bit more problematic than we thought. So my whole purpose for being here or in this conversation at all is first and foremost, I just want to do three things. I want to listen, I want to be an advocate, and I want to be an ally whenever I can. To be honest with you today, I'm really here more or less to listen, because I want to take in all this information and then go back to the multitude of events that I work with and see about implementing these somehow. And so I have a couple of examples. I have a couple of bulleted items that I'd like to discuss, and then also give some examples of how an actual consent team has been built, and then that process has sort of played itself out. So first and foremost, one of my suggestions in terms of consent is to, at a festival like Bailocura or any large dance festival or any dance event for that matter, I feel like we may have to get to the point where we have to create a mandatory consent form. And so as people buy their passes, they have to sign that form and turn that form in, indicating that they have read and understood all of the guidelines that the community has created for their event. It sucks that it has to get to this, but unfortunately, I think we've reached that level where we have to get to that. And so what that mandatory form will do is outline the event's expectations and responsibilities and the potential consequences if those responsibilities aren't met by the participants. And you have to sign that and turn that in. And then a second thing that I would recommend to all festivals is if they maybe try to form what I would call an RRT, which is a rapid response team. And this rapid response team would be, I would suggest, 3 people or varying backgrounds to deal with any kind of complaint. Because what happens is oftentimes people try to go straight to the directors, and the directors are often super, super busy and don't give it the amount of time that it needs. And so I would recommend that anyone throwing a festival needs to add these people to your staff. And of those people, one needs to be a security/enforcement type. One needs to be along the lines of psychology/sociology, or people that have dealt with situations like this before and understand the nuances of it. Because oftentimes us as Congress goers, it's a little too deep for us. Someone comes to us and tells us something happened and we don't know the nuances of it and we don't understand the particulars. And as guys, our first response is to go and try to enforce it. And that creates a culpability for the Congress in the creators of the Congress. That creates a problem for them if you got guys going around trying to enforce things that they don't know the full brevity of or the full extent of. So, and then maybe the third person can be somebody of the administrative, a part of the administration of the actual Congress themselves, who can speak on behalf of the inventors of the Congress or festival. So I would recommend that too. And then thirdly, just to kind of give an example, recently, I'm a part of the Interfusion Festival here in DC. It's a dance/wellness festival that's done in January here every year. And they have a consent team. They have a formal consent team that I had the chance to interview and be a part of. And so I'm assuming they have people that fall within the purview of those 3 things that I just explained. A security type person. I don't know if the security person's from the hotel or from the actual team itself, but it needs to be a licensed security person that's licensed to deal with conflicts and stuff like that, and speak on behalf of the Congress itself. So I would recommend that. And then, like I said, again, Interfusion Festival would be a good example. I have the consent form here on file. I can share that with people. I would recommend looking up the Interfusion Festival. See, interfusionfestivals.com/consent, I think. Yeah. And that could be a good thing to look at as an example. And then thirdly, I just want to, and that's kind of why I'm here. I've heard ladies complaining about this stuff for the last 2 years pretty strongly. And so us guys, especially guys with some kind of platform, need to step up. We got to step up, and we can't, continually pretend like this isn't something when it really is. Silence is complicity at this point. And so That's why I'm here, and I would recommend and encourage more guys, especially guys with platforms, to step up and lend your voice to this situation. Um, yeah, that's it. That's pretty much my 2 cents. And I look forward to hearing from the ladies, and I look forward to listening from this lovely panel and taking questions from anyone in the field.
Yeah, yeah. Those were all really, really amazing bullet points. And you hit on a really good point as, someone that is a promoter and a director. It is hard to be in multiple places at once and to really be able to sink your teeth into a potential situation because there's a good chance you have 10,000 other things waiting for you at that very moment. So definitely needing somebody to do that is a really great idea. Now, I do have one question for you, and I love the idea of the consent form. Once somebody has signed that form, the waiver, or not the waiver, but the agreement, if you will, however we want to call that, basically, what do you think is a responsibility as a promoter, somebody that has passed those up, and maybe somebody has gone ahead and, did exactly what they weren't supposed to do? Where is how do we hold somebody accountable for their actions? Because I think, unfortunately, something that I have seen is that it's not always the case. People can do something and maybe it is reported and there is evidence, but a couple months later, they can do it again because they're allowed to. So can we take that further,
I guess for that particular event, once you violate any of those guidelines that are within that consent form that you fill out, you can terminate your rights to be there, no matter how much money you've spent at that point. If there's actual proof, and obviously the tough part comes within the proof of proving that stuff, but once that is proven, you can be removed from that event with prejudice, without, once you sign that form, down the road, I don't know. And then if you're talking about coming back the next year to the same event, your event, then I'm not sure. This is still young. A lot of this stuff is still in process of, working out the kinks of it. So I'm not sure. I guess that would be at the discretion of the Congress promoters themselves.
Also, one thing that has to also be considered, there's gravity. Just because one person crossed the line doesn't mean that that line is the same for every situation. And so I'm a big proponent on consequences. I tell everybody is in complete control over their choices. What nobody has any control over is the consequences of those choices. And also when you're dealing with Congress events and whatnot, there are two situations that you need to handle. One is the event itself. You can throw somebody out of the event, but you can't kick them out of the hotel. Correct. Okay. When that person becomes a threat to the hotel, then the hotel will remove them. I mean, I remember one situation in DC where we had somebody who just kept coming in despite the fact that he was removed. He managed to get himself in. And it was so bad that I think by the 5th time he was physically removed. He had already been removed 5 times. Wow. The hotel was like, we're done. We're done. You need to leave. And if you don't leave, we're calling the cops. But understand that removing somebody from an event does not equate removing them from the hotel.
For sure.
Right. So we have to totally understand that situation. And somebody who did something inappropriate, there's something that's inappropriate but may not be inappropriate and immoral, but it's not illegal. So that's when you have to sit here and go, okay, these are the possible list of consequences, and list them out really, really clear from the very beginning.
Yeah, because people have the tendency to not read through those things, and so obviously you have to make it as brief as possible and as exact as possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big person that puts it on a big banner. I would love to see it on a big banner and bullet point 1. So if they don't get past bullet point 1, at least they saw bullet point 1 going, we will kick your butt out.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I think for bigger events too, it's important for the event director or someone the host of the event during periods where the entire event is watching, like say the shows or right before the band comes on, and have like something small. It doesn't have to be something drawn out, but hey, just, reminder that our consent form says such and such and such, just to reiterate what the values are of that event and what they're standing by from the very beginning. So even if they signed a form that they didn't read, or they registered and didn't read the email that came after the registration, they just scrolled down to print out their ticket, but that it is something that becomes second nature within the event. Like everywhere you go, everyone that works the event understands this and is constantly making it into the culture of that event. So the very fabric of that event, the host could announce it, and it's also about language, right? Because I've heard at some events the host will be like making jokes about it, like, hey, this is my girl, you can't have sex with my girl, like making it this like dumbing it down where it's serious but not so serious. So let's joke, ha ha ha. Don't push up on that girl. No means no. Blah blah blah. But it's super important to have the language that makes it known that it is a serious matter and that the event does care about it, and that it is going to carry consequences. It does hold weight when you do things that are inappropriate. Instead of kind of like joking about it, because I feel like even though we are in the very new ages or the new stages of formalizing things or rules around consent for these events, these things have been going on for years. I mean, it's been endless since since the start of time, right? It's just now that we're really trying to make conscious efforts for the safety of our fellow community members, which I think is so important. So I think language, distributing that language is not only in paper form, but just in verbal form from the top of the event down to all of its members, I think is also important as well.
Yeah, and to piggyback a little bit off of what Julissa was saying, that there's two different components of or two different facets of an event. There's, like she said, there's the live where everybody's there, social dancing, shows, and stuff like that, workshops. And then the part that's more problematic and a little harder to enforce, and that it probably involves more common sense than it does actual written rules and guidelines, is stuff like after parties and room parties
Yeah.
and stuff like that, where things start to get really tricky. And so in that, like, it's hard to legislate that on paper and whatnot.
For
You just
sure,
have to
for
kind of
sure.
really, like you said, enforce common sense rules with stuff like that to both gentlemen and ladies, when it comes to after parties and drinks and alcohol and all that stuff in the after hours.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just has to become the very fabric of that event. So that if I'm going to say, for example, Bailacura, I understand that this is an event of integrity and these things are not gonna be allowed. And I know that because from the head all the way down to its smallest volunteer, they instill that, they project that, they speak about that in a constant, manner where it makes me feel safe and I understand the type of event that I'm attending.
Yeah, the MCs have to really reiterate that because they have the microphone the most at these events.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point about making sure that everybody, all the way down to the MC, is on board. Julissa, I know you've done a couple of these panels before. I've seen you and
Me and
Renzo.
Renzo.
I guess if you had to spotlight one thing, outside of what Renzo said, because those are amazing points. Where else can you improve as a dance community?
I think one of the things that I feel is most important about consent is just around educating our dancers, educating from the time that a person takes a beginner's class. I think it's important for the instructors that are bringing people into our community, even people that are teaching them in these free classes. I think it's important to educate anyone who's coming into the community on what is standard. I feel like nowadays, or not nowadays, but I feel like in the past, it's been like, oh yeah, when kids come in, especially our youth comes in and they see everyone hanging out, or they see someone attracted to somebody, and it's like common form, and they're like, oh, he said this and it was kind of rude, but it happens all the time. So now this 16-year-old is like, oh, it's something that it happens all the time. I shouldn't see it as a big deal. And that is teaching every person that comes into our community that it's just something that's normal, and it shouldn't be treated as normal. You know, the human decency is not something that should go without, you know. So I think it's important to educate our community members from when they first enter our community, whether they're just coming to listen to the music or whether they're coming to take their first 5, 6, 7, in whatever way dance form. The truth of the matter is that we all teach partner dancing. We all teach communication between two people. So if the communication between two people is like one person's doing all the talking and the other person's like, I'm just gonna ignore because that's normal, then there's not really communication, whether it's connection on the dance floor or connection off the dance floor. So I think it's important to, especially our youth, there's a lot of young people coming into our dance community from high schools, from middle, I mean, they're starting really young. So we want to make sure that they understand that certain things they shouldn't allow and certain things they just shouldn't do. And I think it starts from the people that are mentoring them. So I feel very strongly about mentors and instructors and, you know, leaders themselves to give that example of integrity, and to give that example that this is how we respect our fellow dance members. We're all part of this dance community. We all want to enjoy the dance community together, and this is how we can do that respectfully. And yeah, so I'm really more passionate about the education, and I think, like I said, one of the ways is to really start from when they first enter the community. You know, I think that's important.
2 points that we definitely have to consider: repetition. We need to repeat this until it's no longer needed to be repeated, that everybody knows. Because keeping in mind, we have day passes, you know, not everybody buys a full pass. So if somebody just is there just for a day pass, they need to hear about it. If somebody's there just for a night pass, just for the concerts, they need to hear about it. These are things that way. And if they're buying it on the fly,
Yeah.
you know, I volunteered at many congresses, and some of the crazy I have seen. That's why I'm a big proponent about having it someplace right at registration. Yes, they have to do it when they do their event right. Yes, they have to do it before they buy their ticket. But I have a big old bullet right there every time they go anywhere near that event desk, that it stares them in the face. That way, no matter if it's a full pass, a day pass, a night pass, that way everybody sees it. It should also be done in the classes. I mean, I just started teaching. I only have one, since I'm learning how to teach, I'm only taking one student. And even from day one, it was just like, okay, this is the history of bachata. By the way, you don't do this. And it's like, he didn't even get into the basics before that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. And every lesson we have, it's always a little bit of history of the bachata. By the way, you don't behave this way. Now we move on to our lesson. That way, you know, my goal for my student is in a year from now, if and when he's ready to take this to the next level and go to congresses, I don't have to worry about him.
Yeah.
You know, and this is something that needs to be taught every time, you know, especially when you're dealing with something like, you know, I'm a bachata dancer. So when you're dealing with central bachata, that needs to be like, from the very beginning at every class that teaches every type of central bachata. That way we all know, because I've been in situations where guys like, okay, you know, I love bachata because you can open and close at any time and it looks amazing. But sometimes this guy didn't want to open. And so I'm like,
open the door, let me out.
So that's the one thing. And we do have a question here. Suzy had asked, how can I discuss with my partner about boundaries after we've been together for a while? How can you discuss that? Every time, all the time, anytime you see him. That's how you discuss it.
Day one.
You know, you feel uncomfortable. If he's your boo, he should have enough faith and trust in you that you can talk to him about anything that's uncomfortable. And if you can't, I'm just going to let you fill in that way.
I think that question also goes back to education. So if we educate our youth as they come in to understand what their boundaries are and to understand that, or to make them just think about, because a lot of people don't know what their boundaries are until they get to a position where they feel their boundaries were crushed, right? You have to understand where you're coming from or where you want to begin. So when you're entering the dance, okay, I want to go to this night. This is what I'm not going to allow, or this is not what I'm not going to do. But some people just go in there and they don't have that understanding of themselves. So then when they put into that situation, that's where we get into a lot of situations where, you know, they don't know what to say to that person, or they don't know who to tell, or they don't know if it was wrong or if it's normal, or should I complain about this, because they didn't understand their boundaries to begin with. And those things need to be taught and discussed and reiterated from day one. Any partner you have, even if it's a 5-minute dance, you know, you need to say that from the beginning. You know what I mean?
We just got another question here from Suzy. How can I communicate with my partner when I feel they don't communicate back? You know, communication, it doesn't happen just within, you know, the dance scene. You communicate with your boss, with your coworkers. Communication is an art form, and it takes two people to communicate. So if you have an issue, if you feel that your partner's not communicating with you, the two of you have to try to figure that out. What is the best form of communication between you? Be very leery or cautious and avoid using accusatory statements like, I don't like it when you do this, and be very careful with your tone. Your volume is very clear as well. How you say something can ruin the most right answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. We do have another question too.
Well, check that out.
Daryl says, sometimes ladies have too much to drink and forget about their boundaries. What can responsible guy, maybe
That's me. That's my part.
I'd love to hear from both of you, from you and from Renzo, actually, on this one.
Yeah.
So Renzo, you go first.
Oh,
I have an entire 5-minute presentation.
You the guy, bro.
the representative man. All right, so let me reread that. Are we talking about Daryl's question here? Okay, sometimes ladies have too much to drink and forget about their boundaries. What can responsible guys do in that situation? I guess if I'm reading that correctly, meaning that when maybe the lady herself is sort of extending a little too far past some boundaries, which does happen, by the way, too. I want to iterate that this is not only, it is the majority of it is male to female in terms of violations, but this actually does happen the other way as well.
Yeah.
And then guys, you know, we are trained to just man up and take these things and just sort of deal with it, you know. But it's strange because I actually have had this happen a couple of times before to me as well, with somebody who was a little inebriated and a little too all over me and a little too touchy-feely. You know, but I feel as guys, stop. I just stopped the dance. And I literally did this in the middle of the dance floor one time. I really recommend this to ladies. I feel like it needs to happen a lot more with ladies. Don't be ashamed to stop the dance, because I, as a guy who a lot bigger and a lot stronger and a lot more in control of the situation, felt the need that I had to stop it before it morphed over into something where it looked like I was the aggressor and not her. So yeah, as a guy, you just have to stop, like literally stop leading, and let her know if you feel improper or something's improper. And if she's okay with that, you can continue to dance. And if she's not, then you say thank you very much, and both of you exit the dance floor. And I think that goes across both genders. Ladies, feel free to do that as well. Say, I'm not comfortable with this. Your hand's a little too low on my back. And, you know, if he does it again, maybe physically put the hand up. And then if he does it again, say thank you very much and exit. And if you feel like you need to report it, then report it. Sometimes it can be a matter of, you know, being inebriated, which is no excuse, but, you know, maybe that situation can be dealt with a little bit different. But if they just seem like a problematic person who's a little touchy-feely, then that has already been articulated in the agreement that we talked about signing at the beginning. and that person should be probably removed. But yeah, guys, this doesn't happen very often, and I think oftentimes guys are caught off guard when it happens, to be honest with you. And so we just sort of don't know what to do, you know. But yeah, there definitely are some frisky, touchy-feely ladies out there too, with a little assistance from Jose Cuervo or whatever. They get a little. So you just have to, as a guy, you just have to articulate that and stop the dance if you feel like it's too much.
The other thing that also needs to be considered is, especially when a woman is drunk, she is the follow. Excuse me, I take that back. That is that is a 2018 statement. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. Okay, when a woman is taking the role of a follow and she is drunk, she is putting not only herself but the lead at risk. Let's not even talk about, touchy-feely, inappropriate touch. She is risking herself and she is risking the lead, because the lead's going to have to try to maneuver somebody whose, balance is questionable, whose step may not be in place, her timing will probably off. She's not going to be carrying her weight well because she's not focused on her dancing. So with that, I'm a big fan of open position with drunk folk. It's just like, you keep your distance over here, I keep my distance over here. Life is good. That is the best way. And when, of course, other situations are what happens when you're viewing this situation. I know within my team, we've been in situations where we'll see this girl who has clearly had too much to drink, and a guy is up there, having his way. And of course, somebody like me, because I teach sexual assault and awareness, and I'm the mob ladies lead where we have these discussions. And my team, we're all trained to be like, okay, what did we just see? But you have to speak up, because in the situation that I'm referring to right now, they were a couple. And it's like, okay, if you want to behave that way, can you do us all a favor? There are people like me and other people watching to make sure that she's safe. And so take it someplace else. I'm not telling people not to do it. I'm just saying, take it someplace else. That way we don't question whether or not she's safe. In terms of, let's say you're an educated bystander. This, that's my portion of this conversation. There are many, many, many ways to become a distraction. That way, everybody stays safe, but we don't escalate anything. And we got another question here. Okay, how can I understand the line between playing hard to get and leave me? How can I understand the line between playing hard to get and leave me alone with somebody I'm interested in? Well, that's a choice. I mean, I would voice that choice. It's just like, I like you. Now, what the two of you choose to do after that is between the two of you. But I'm not a big fan of playing hard to get, because that, in my opinion, and DJ Renzo, you're a guy, you can kind of, please help me with this.
Renzo don't like that either.
Yeah. Playing
Renzo's
hard
like, say it with your chest, girl. Say it with your chest.
And we're grown adults here. We shouldn't be playing hard to get. If you like somebody, and you let them know. That way there's no question about it, and you don't send mixed signals. Because mixed signals and alcohol.
Especially in an event. That is like not the place to play hard to get.
That is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. What is the best way to ask for consent? How can I make sure the woman is comfortable saying no? You ask her, and you initiate that conversation. When the two of you are deciding to do whatever two people, grown, consenting adults do, you have to be comfortable having this conversation. And and I like to call them yummy guys, okay? A yummy man knows how to tell a woman, if you're not comfortable, I'm okay with that.
Come on, yummy. I like that.
Yes, yummy guy. Yummy, yummy, yummy guys. I've been known to make statements that have hurt guys' feelings. And I tell
I
people,
love
I'm
that.
not anti-men. I'm pro yummy guy.
I love that.
Renzo, are you okay with being a yummy guy? Renzo, are you okay with being a yummy guy?
I feel it just right, yeah.
But yeah, in answer to Darryl's question, that is a statement that has to come. You guys, when it looks like it's going that way, those are conversations that need to be had. They're not cool conversations to have, but it protects you and it protects her.
It's really interesting to see a lot of how dating behavior morphs its way over into the dance scene. Speaking of hard to get and stuff like that, it gets really difficult. Again, that's why I said we have to sort of be able to discern the difference between regular social dancing behavior, things that are happening when people are around, and then things that happen sort of after hours type things. But yeah, playing hard to get on the dance floor, I guess if I'm reading that correctly. Yeah, I wouldn't. Like Julissa knows me well. Not a big fan of that. Now, if you are actually have transitioned over into the dating strata and the boy meets girl type thing off of the dance floor type stuff, then yeah, that's a different subject altogether, I think. But
Right.
in terms of, I'm really trying to focus more on improprieties within a social dance,
Yeah.
primarily, and then secondarily in an after hour setting type of a thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting question, Suzy.
Yeah.
I have to give that some thought.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get too far into the Q&As, we are going to save some more time at the end. But I know, Muñeca, you had some graphics, you had some information that you wanted to share with us.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay,
Yeah.
let me do a quick introduction here because a lot of people may not know me. My name is Muñeca Nieves. I am part of the administrative team for a dance network of people known as the Mafia of Beats, also known as the MOB. You'll see us around. This is our logo. So if you see this, that's who we are. I'm also the Mob Ladies lead, and I am also the lead for Sexual Assault and Awareness Task Force. So there is a group of us specifically of social dancers that are concerned about this, and we help address this, and we help address situations where people have unfortunately been hurt. I'd like to discuss the educated consumer, or excuse me, the educated bystander. Let's understand that in life, okay, not just in the dance scene, but in college and things of that nature, people are going to drink, okay? I personally don't drink, but I want people to be extremely aware, especially at events. There is liquor all over the place, okay? And oftentimes, especially when we're dealing with the young ones, people that are still in college, just turned 21, don't have full control or understanding of their alcohol consumption. They are very much at risk. So I'm bringing up this first graphic right now. In this upper corner, we'll say 55% of women and 75% of men were drinking or taking drugs when they were involved in a date rape. I want people to truly kind of come to terms with that. The second one, I'm sorry. The blue, how about we look at the blue one? Okay, the blue one, over half of post-secondary sexual assaults involve drugs, alcohol, and most often occur between two people that know each other, are dating, friends, and or acquaintances, or are hanging out at parties or other university events. How about we take out anything that says college and put dance event in there, because the same rules apply.
Yeah.
I tell my people all the time, awareness is the way to stay safe. When you are aware of your surroundings, yourself, that's how you're going to stay safest. Okay. So in a situation like this, and I'm also going to share several stories that have actually happened. That way people can get an understanding that this isn't me just preaching. These are true stories. Okay. Can we go to the next one? The next slide. Outstanding. Thank you so much. This next slide talks about, this is the educated bystander. Okay. You're in situations, you see a situation that's not going well. And oftentimes, now let's look at the left side of the pie chart. 57.4% didn't intervene because they didn't know what to do. Well, they didn't intervene, and it was 22.8% didn't know what to do. And I think that's actually, that number is actually quite high, a lot higher. Okay, and if we look at the other pie chart, reactions of witnesses of an intimate person heading into a sexual encounter, 79.8% did not intervene. Now, look, I'm the big person on whatever two consenting people want to do, that's what two consenting people are going to do, and that's not my concern. But when you start mixing alcohol in there, I'm really clear with my ladies. Ladies, if a man is giving you alcohol so you can relax, what is he going to do with you drunk that he can't do with you sober? So I want people to really kind of take that and have a moment with that next time you're in that situation. Because, here, I'll give you a drink to relax. It's never one. So if you know it's never one, you have to start putting yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
So now as we get on and you look at these situations, I'm going to start, can we close that one? And we're going to start a YouTube video. In this YouTube video, before we start it, I'm going to give you the setup. In this YouTube video, it's taken in Spain, middle of the week, 5:30 in the afternoon, okay? And the video itself, would men help? And the setup is, a young lady is pretending to be drunk, and she is roaming the streets of Madrid. Can we roll the video, please? Do we have volume on this? Okay, if we don't have volume, I'm going to tell you what's going on.
She's got it.
Yeah. The results were shocking.
So the young lady's an actress who's pretending to be drunk. This was Inside Edition did the intro to this. And this was a social experiment.
Undercover, pretending to be drunk and lost on the streets of Madrid for a social experiment to see how men would react. The results were shocking.
¿Que te emborrachas?
Yo no bebo nunca.
¿Vamos a una escalera que están ahí?
¿Una escalera?
Sí.
¿Para qué? Es que llevo bebiendo todo el día.
¿Estás cansada? Venga, venga.
Es que no puedo caminar bien.
Yo también.
No, es que no es buena idea, no puedo caminar.
The Centro Europeo Neurosalis, a local rehab center, conducted the experiment to see if men on the street would try to help a drunk girl in the middle of the day or attempt to take advantage of her.
Yo no puedo caminar.
Mira, puedes comprar cerveza.
Más cerveza. ¿Pero tú crees que yo puedo beber más?
Sí.
In a cringe-worthy 10-minute video, many men approached the actress, but instead of offering to help her out, they suggested getting more drinks, and even some tried to get intimate with her.
Tengo el cargador de...
¿Tienes cargador?
Sí, ahí a hotel.
¿En el hotel?
Sí.
¿Pero y a dónde vamos? ¿Al hotel?
Sí, hay hotel aquí, ¿no?
Es que llevo toda la mañana bebiendo.
It's an eye-opening video with shocking results.
Sí. Ya se me vino a besar y todo. Es fuerte.
Be sure to watch Inside Edition.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This is an 11-minute video. The whole video is extremely disturbing. Extremely disturbing. So we have a question here from Brent. Is there something that members of the dance community can do to encourage safety or know when or how to intervene? Let me start with this. One story, and all of these stories have happened, and they all happened in the dance community. Okay, so the first story, it was a situation between two guys and a girl. One of the guys knew both of the people, but the girl and this other guy were They had just barely met. They're kind of, I know who you are. We're Facebook friends, but we're not really friends in real life. Somewhere along the way, we're going to call him Guy A and the girl. Guy A got stupid, and he was getting loud, and he was becoming extremely, extremely, extremely aggressive to the girl. And the Guy B, did nothing. And so what ends up happening is that Guy A is escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating, and the situation is getting worse. That story was all over Facebook. Okay. I'm going to tell you how to handle this in a minute. Second situation. It wasn't a dance event, but it was a social. The girl is dancing with the guy. Both people had been drinking, but clearly the guy had more to drink, simply by the way he was moving and all this other stuff. Don't ask me. He had to have had this planned. My situation feels like he had this planned. So the end of the song is coming. He knows the end of the song. 5 seconds before the end of the song, he slaps the girl on the butt so hard that he left a bruise. Now, let's not even talk about whether or not it was hard or soft or whatever the case may be. He should have never been down there first in the first place. But that's how hard he slapped her. Okay. Last situation that I want to share with you. Well, no, this one did not take place in the dance community. I ended up talking recently at a college event. Two guys met two girls at a bar, and they're putting it back because they had a mixed drink sale, $1 something or other. Everybody decides to go back to the guy's apartment. Okay. Couple A go off somewhere to do what couples do. Couple B go off to do what couples do. Things started to happen. Clothes were removed, but she fell asleep. So the guy's in his own apartment. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to let her sleep this off. And he goes into his living room to go play games. X many hours later, she wakes up in a place she's never been in, half dressed, screaming that she's been raped, running out. Now, how do we escalate? How do we de-escalate all these situations? Okay, in situation number one, distraction is the best. Oh, hold on, let me see. I can't for the life of me understand why anyone would want anything from anyone without their consent. Consent is the base. Yes, yes, and yes. With that stated, in situation number one, where Guy A was escalating, Guy B, his statement was he didn't want to intervene because he was friends with both of them, which I think is the coward's way out. Yeah. What should he have done? Distraction is the best thing. That's the time where you turn around and say, let's go get, who wants to go get a coffee? Take the girl and say, hey, you want a coffee? I'm treating. And get her out of there. Why do you want to use that statement? You want to use that statement because, one, if you say anything directly to somebody who's already escalating, you're already going to make it worse. They're already escalating. You confront them in any way, any confrontation, they're just going to get worse. They've already proven that they're headed that way. Getting coffee is neutral. You're not accusing them of anything. You're not telling them that they're wrong. You're just trying to get that person safely out of there. Okay, and if they say anything, I don't want her to leave. He says, well, I'm not buying her anything unless she picks it out. Say something, and all of these things are practice behaviors, okay? So you have to be home, and before you go to a social, before you go to events, kind of walk these things through in your brain, because if you already know what it looks like, you'll be ready. So in the second situation, where the girl got smacked. Now, I want everybody to know and understand that I am not a proponent of violence, okay? But I am a big person on natural consequences. And remember when I started all of this, that everybody's in charge of their choices. You're just not in charge of the consequences of those choices. Well, Miss Honey turned around and smacked him in front of God and everybody. And what ended up happening is that when all of that went down, and that went down literally in under 3 seconds, somebody went right in between them and pushed her away and aside into a safe situation. And then when the DJ saw that happened, he removed the guy. Now, as a post story to that, that was brought to the attention of my group. We spoke to the young lady, we spoke to the DJ. I personally found out who the guy was. I sent him a scathing inbox. It's like, look, if you can't control your liquor, stay home. You know, if you want to dance, you look bad when you dance and drink. Don't drink and dance. Don't drink and drive, don't drink and dance. Okay? You set the situation up. You shouldn't have done this. It was not nice. Now, mind you, one, we were not friends. I didn't expect him to see it. And if he saw it, I fully expected him to either ignore it or rip me a new one. And I was ready for any of those. The reply and the response I got was, you're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I have to do a lot of introspection. And it'll be a minute before I go out dancing again. So in that situation, because it had already been like the next day by the time I had found out, you know, hopefully he sobered up. You know, it hasn't been brought to my attention. It has, so I haven't heard about it. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that no news is good news in that situation.
All right, Brent, if I could just briefly, because I think Muñeca actually, she said it as well, but a real quick mnemonic device that I like to use when you see something like that happening, maybe on the dance floor, and that's usually where things kind of start on the dance floor, is distract versus confront. I know guys typically want to go and confront the guy, and like Muñeca stated, that it's already a heightened situation, don't heighten it anymore. But maybe pull the lady to the side and say, hey, you know, play it off. Hey, can I speak to you real quick? If you know her, call her by name. If you don't know her, then, excuse me, pardon me. Can I speak to you really quick? And then you just pull it to the side and say, hey, is everything okay? You know, ask and make sure she's okay with it. You may not know, you know, you don't know the gravity of the situation. Yeah. And if she's not comfortable with the situation, she'll be like, oh no, this guy's so creepy. Thank you for bailing me out or help me in some kind of way. And you go, hey, we need to talk to you backstage about the rehearsals tomorrow, blah, 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 and just take her away and whisk her away.
Yeah. Or my personal favorite is your roommate's looking for you. You have the key card.
Yeah. So distract versus confront.
I've used that line more times than I care to count because it is one, non-confrontational, it's neutral, and it's logical. Okay, how many times us girls are not in a situation where we're wearing something that we can carry our key card? Okay, and we give it to our roommate. Or we're in one of those situations where our roommate doesn't have a key card for another reason, but that's not here nor there. So yes, something simple. Your roommate's looking for you. Your director's looking for you. You're missing a key card. You have your, you know, and you'll be able to tell because the woman will have, or the dancer, because I've seen it happen to guys too. You know, the dancer will be very stiff and their eyes get big and they're looking to see what to do with their hands. Okay, so something that needs to be understood that way. In the last situation, I mean, this young lady was concerned about what happened. Again, you know, I don't blame her for being concerned. You know, she went to the hospital and they're like, ma'am, we don't know what happened, but sex didn't happen. You know, but again, we go back into that situation of your own awareness as to how you handle liquor is going to be really clear. Because it has been proven time and time again that a predator will go after somebody who's drinking versus somebody who's not. Yeah. So something else to keep in mind. Now, I want to share a good shout out. Okay. Again, with the MLB, this is an organization, men and women, we have associates. Okay. So if you see somebody with this shirt, this logo, and has an associate on this side, that's one of my people, and I'm really proud of them. And they go through an interview process in order to be an associate. And if they get to talk to me, I get to give them the entire consent conversation. So my guys know, and the girls too, but the guys, I kind of lay it heavier on the men. So let me set up the situation. There was a pool party. and a young lady had a little bit too much to drink. And and there were guys circling, they were vulturing. Okay. And one of my associates, I'm so proud of him, saw what was going on and stayed with her. And this is where we're going to now get into other things you do, especially when you're in a public situation. One, my associate stayed with that woman. And he stayed with her, and he didn't offer her anything to drink. He just stayed with her, conversed with her, did not let her drink more so she can try to get out of this head. And what ended up happening is that I had a couple of associates at this event. 2 more associates came, and they were both female. One came with water and kept giving her water to drink to try to dilute and get her sober up. And then the second female came in later on with like a Gatorade package and gave her the Gatorade package to get electrolytes in there. Why is all of this important? Especially if you are an educated bystander. One, you will never remove that woman away from a public situation. Okay, so wherever she was, they didn't change her because you know what? They don't know where she lives. They don't know how she got there. They don't know where her car is. They don't know if they're with friends. These are situations, so they kept her where she was until she got to a better place where she could take care of herself. Secondly, they kept hydrating her to try to get the head out, get her sobered up. That way she was in a situation where she can make her own self-choice, her own safe choices for herself. And the importance of, and I'm a big person on, ladies, carry some Gatorade packages in your purse. Just, you need those electrolytes because physiologically, alcohol will not only diminish your judgment, it will diminish you in terms of your immune system, and it can truly mess things up, and which also increases your inability to make a sound judgment call. So with all of that, carry some, Gatorade packages with you. And with my situation, my second lady who gave her the Gatorade package, she gave it to her versus opening it up. Okay, because you don't know what people are doing with that. Whereas if you open it up, you already know it's a Gatorade package. Okay, this is cool. But between the 3 of them, they stayed with this young lady until she had sobered up enough to get herself home. So 1, keep her in a public place. 2, do everything possible to get somebody there as a witness so you can they know that you're not being creepy and whatnot, and do everything that you can until she can go off on her own safely. It's going to take a while. If you're in a situation where you can get her food, so anything to dissipate the effects of the alcohol or what you do. So in a situation where you're trying to help somebody and it's super quick that you're trying to get them out of a situation, come up with distraction lines. Have an entire laundry list. Practice those at home. Okay. And in the situation that you saw, like in that video, again, it was a social experiment. She was sober as a day is long. Again, keep her in a public place. Do your best to find a witness and stay until such time that she's sobered up. Thank you, Suzy. So I will take any and all questions on that. There's a lot more to this, but I just wanted to give a high-level overview on this. And that way, here's the thing. You don't want to be the person that saw what was happening and then found out later that something happened and didn't do anything.
For sure.
That's so true. Yeah. And we do have just a few more minutes. We do have another panel starting right at 7. But we can take a few more questions, but I do think I'm checking them, and I do believe we answered them all kind of as we went. But if anyone has any more questions, or if anyone has anything, I think that was all amazing information. And I think the main point of it is we just need to have each other's back and stop looking at the dance scene as a playground.
For sure.
We came there because we appreciate the culture of the dances, and we appreciate the social interaction in a safe environment. And we need to keep that in mind. We need to keep that safe environment and have each other's back and be, proactive instead of reactive about these things, really.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say, Julissa?
I would just say, we're not trying to tell you guys not to have a good time or not to have a few drinks or whatever, but I think what we're all trying to kind of touch on is be aware of your surroundings, understand the boundaries, understand that, you know, even outside of the dance realm in life, there's always going to be dangers. You should always be aware of your surroundings. You should always be aware of what you're putting inside your body that could hinder you from making sound decisions. That doesn't mean that you can't go out and have a good time, but it should mean that, you know, make sure whoever you're having a good time with does have your back and is going to be watching for these things, you know. You're not just chilling by yourself, you know, having the tequila shots alone where no one is looking out for you. So it is super important that you are aware of everything that's going on, you know, and that goes for both guys and girls, you know. Still have a good time, but, you know, make sure you know who you're having a good time with and that you're not just random acquaintances, you know. Make sure you know who you're always being surrounded by and make sure you're surrounded by good people. For sure.
Yes, and always be careful about room parties because you don't know what's going on in there. And this isn't me self-aggrandizing or anything. The MOB, we throw amazing room parties and we have those rules in place. So we set up those boundaries already. So any MOB party is going to already have those boundaries already in place.
That's a good point. Renzo, do you have anything else to add? I know you were listening a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. But guys, do just like I did today. Talk less, listen more, be allies, be advocates. And then also to the event organizers themselves, because I know one of the things we talked about is that we need to hold the instructors more accountable, and it all starts with the instructors and stuff like that. I'd also like to remind the event organizers that sometimes it's the instructors themselves that are blurring the lines. So you need to have conversations with the instructors as well. So that's it.
You need to know who you're hiring.
Exactly. So thank you for having me, ladies.
Yes.
Thank you for people that tuned in.
Thank you,
I hope
Jenny.
you gleaned some good information from this.
I think so. Suzy said, I think they presented all possible scenarios. Thank you guys very much. Lots of info here. So
share the link. Right when other people get it.
Yes, please.
Lots of info. So let's get it out there and let's open up that door of uncomfortable conversation and make it a more comfortable conversation for our community. So thank you guys so much. I hope you can tune in for some of the DJ sessions later tonight. Up next, guys, we have the others. You saw scrolling. There's another panel starting right at 7. We got a lot going on. We still got a lot for you guys for the rest of the evening. So make sure you have that schedule nearby, and we'll see you guys later.
Have a good evening.
Bye. Good night.
Ciao.